The Philippine peso weakened to a historic low on Tuesday, October 28, and that's the peso closing at 59.13 against the US dollar, its lowest level since December of last year. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas said the depreciation may reflect market concerns over the ongoing flood control corruption controversy and expectations of further monetary easing. The central bank, though, assured that the peso remains supported by remittances, tourism, and BPO inflows. And joining us today to help us analyze what's going on, we have Economist Ronilo Balbieran from the University of Asia and the Pacific. Welcome back to Morning Matters.
Good morning, Reggie.
Okay, help us understand what's happening now to the economy. The peso hitting record lows, 59.13 to a US dollar. Why is the peso getting weaker exactly?
Well, there are two things. No, there is a long-term trend towards this depreciation because of our trade deficit, and then number two is the short-term, very short-term, speculative aspect to it. No? So the BSP said that it may be actually be a reflection of our the total indication of our feelings towards what's happening in the transparency and corruption in our national government. No? So given that, so we will go back to basic. No? So what is exchange rate? But this is actually the price of the dollar. So it's really a combination of two things: so demand and supply of the dollars. No? So therefore, if you have that particular sentiment, no, against the national government in terms of managing our economy, so you tend to actually hold on to your dollars and probably go somewhere else. And so that will actually now reduce the supply of dollars in our economy. Those that are actually the large part in terms of short-term speculation here is the stock market. So sila yung pinaka nauuna. So if and our stock market is generally around 50%, around half of our stock market money is actually driven by foreign funds, no? And so therefore, foreign portfolio managers would be driving so much of what's happening in the dollar exchange in relation to our stock market. And so that would be a huge short-term fluctuation for our exchange rate. So pagka feeling nila parang feeling ko our the Philippine economy might actually slow down. So therefore, they will try to put their investment somewhere else in terms of who are the economies that are projected to be growing faster. So they will temporarily go to those particular economies. And so that's the driver for this short term sentiment in relation to stock market. And then later on, the long term part would be the investments, and then of course the BPOs, the exports, the tourism. So that's why we are taking a look at this particular fluctuation in the exchange rate, as far as how long will this last. No, so we should not be afraid of what's happening now, especially what happened yesterday. But this is already an indication of what can actually happen if this particular investigation, this particular credibility fight of the national government towards actually convincing everyone, no, that we're doing our best to clean up the government. And so that will reflect midterm, short term, and that will actually have implication on supply and demand of dollars. So hopefully, this particular short-term decisions of portfolio managers would be reversed and have, or at least stabilize, the fluctuation of our exchange rate.
Paano po yan? Kahapon, sinabi po ng Malacanang, wag daw magmadali ang taong bayan pagdating dito sa paghahanap ng resulta sa mga investigasyon because they want to do it right. Does that mean that this could go on longer na with the pronouncement of Malacanang?
Um, Yes, no, but the fortunate thing here is how long can our Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas actually manage this particular sentiment, no? So this will be dictated by how much the BSP has dollar reserves, no, in relation to the dollar holdings of other elements of our economy, no. So and
Correct.
as from the last checking, I think the most recent data of BSP indicates that we have at least more than 109 billion dollars of dollar reserve. That's equivalent to 7.3 months of import cover. The threshold is 3 months, no, for a small open economy. So that means if the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas holds around 25 to 33% of the dollar supply for our economy, so they can actually fend off the negative speculations against our exchange rate. So therefore, they can actually fight it off if this particular situation becomes no, worrisome. So the worst possible condition is when you take a look at the vault of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas and you don't find any dollar reserves, and therefore we will be at the mercy of the portfolio managers. So
Of
and
course, we're
then that
heading off.
particular, yes, the exchange rate will skyrocket, and
Correct.
then our imports will go haywire, and then our dollar debts, no, will go haywire, and so this would be a very dangerous economic crisis head on, no? But we're very far from that particular situation in terms of facing economic crisis because of the acceleration of the exchange rate, no. So I think just to just compress everything, no, so 59 is not a worrisome exchange rate. In fact, it might actually be better in terms of curing some of the needed correction in terms of our trade, no, of our exports and imports. So because our trade deficit is really bleeding, so this is actually in a way, no, a blessing in disguise in terms of correcting our import behavior, and then somehow, no, help our exporters, our BPOs, and our tourism sector in terms of slightly depreciated currency. Ang ano ko dito, sana wag lang lalampas ng 62, no? So if we have that bandwidth between 59 to 61, this should actually be more beneficial for us, as long as we when we take a look at the BSP's vault, there's still enough dollar reserves for the BSP to actually fight a dangerous speculation against our economy.
So, you expect, ano, kumbaga, mga more foreigners coming to invest because of the strengthening of their money as opposed to ours, and mas marami tayong mga exports, tama ba?
Oh,
Because
so,
of
so this is quite tricky, no? So because we're dealing with our currency versus an international currency, no? So it is not just dependent on what's happening inside our country. It is also in relation to what's happening in the US, no, primarily, and then the other parts of the world. So, parang lagi mo sino ba ang mas maganda yung takbo ng ekonomiya? Yung Pilipinas ba o yung the rest of the world? Especially yung Amerika, no? So, for example, we've been hearing news about the projected slowdown of the American economy, no? So, this is another blessing in disguise in relation to our economy, no? So we are projected to slow down, but America is also projected to slow down. So it's not that we're praying that they slow down so that we can so that our
but
slowdown is
is the
relatively
US
faster.
dollar getting stronger? Are
Uh,
the tariffs of Donald Trump working somehow?
is- yeah, so I think that's the trickier part, no, because their inflation, their economy, and then now they're talking about the shutdown in their government because of the budget, no. So I think their situation is much more worrisome if they cannot resolve their particular crisis in relation to their shutdown, no. So So again, if we go back and take a look at our economy, no, so what really drives our economy and what will actually, attract long-term investments, because there are two types of investments, no? So the portfolio, which is the stock market, and then the
Mm-hmm.
foreign direct investments, no? So what we are really concerned about is the long term, no, the foreign direct investments, no? Foreigners really going inside our country, establishing factories, establishing offices, because they see that in the long term, so we have actually a healthy market na consumer demand. You have predictable costs in power, in water, in internet, etc. No? So that's what we should be looking at. No? So uh, the way it will be affected is this corruption, is it actually affecting long-term structures, infrastructure like roads, bridges, power supply, internet infrastructure? So is the corruption eating up
Mm-mm. Uh,
bigger in terms of the scales on what businesses actually are requiring for them to actually decide to
to operate.
get, yes, and then the announcement in relation to the 0% tariff rate of our neighbors.
Oo nga
uh,
eh. Yun nga yung pinagtataka natin eh, no? I mean, they were supposed to be the closest ally of the United States. What do you
yes.
think is the strategy behind that?
Again, no, so they say, no, so nobody can explain this, and perhaps according to Jeffrey Sachs, no, not even Trump can explain himself. So therefore, we are at the mercy of this unilateral decision of Trump in relation to 19% versus 0% with our closest neighbors. So, but then I think again, the the short-term problems for us is to really manage the sentiment and the speculation, because this can really go unmanaged, or this can actually be a self-fulfilling prophecy when not dealt with very carefully, no? So but napakasimpleng exchange rate pero biglang maapektuhan yung mga importers natin na nagte-trade at nagbebenta dito sa Pilipinas. So this can actually lead to higher prices if our imported consumption goods will become more expensive. At the
Correct,
same
correct.
time, raw materials will become more expensive. No, so this is really a balance. No, on one hand, you want exchange rate to be higher to benefit the
The
exporters, the
OFWs and the
CEOs,
exporters, yes.
but at the same time, a large part of our economy is really dependent on imported raw materials. No? So this is just around 1 to 2% general depreciation. So if we can just keep it within 2 to 3% of depreciation, I think we should be okay.
And how much do you expect prices to go up? The BSP has already said that it does not intervene in the currency market to prevent day-to-day volatility, but to dampen inflationary swings in the exchange rate over time. Yun po yung kanilang statement when it comes to that. Although, back in October, no, binaba po nila ng 25 basis points yung key policy rate. Sinabi po nila na they still see a 25 basis point cut in December, an additional one in the first quarter. So do you see them pushing through with that as we see what's happening now?
I think so. No, so I think the exchange rate would be less of their worry versus the slowdown of our economy. No? So in relation to that, since you still have an inflation rate of way below 4%, so they still have a very huge room to take care of the economy problem, the economic growth problem, rather than inflation problem. No? So and usually it takes 12 to 18 months for a policy rate cut, no, to be translated into economic growth. No? So
Oo.
kasi the banks will still have to readjust, recalculate their final lending rate according to the risk profiles of their clients, no? So yung 4.75% policy rate, yung 25 basis points na kinat, no? And then another 25 basis points sa December, another 25 basis points sa first quarter. Yung mga yan kakagat pa 12 to 18 months after, no? So asahan pa natin yan towards the end of 2026 and first half of 2027.
Although sinabi
So,
po nila that the recent peso depreciation could be caused by that, those pronouncements, no, yung expectation nga po of monetary policy easing by the BSP, but they also acknowledged a potential moderation in economic growth due to the infra spending controversy. Is this the first time that the government is actually recognizing the impacts of the flood control probe? Remember that at the start of the month, nagkaroon po ng statement ang SEC chairperson na nagkaroon ng wipeout ng 1.7 trillion in market value, which the special assistant to the President for Investment and Economic Affairs said na fake news daw ito. Is this the first time that the government is actually acknowledging an impact to the economy with a statement of the BSP? And ano po ang inyong palagay nga dun sa ano, no? Yung sa effect nga nung kanilang pronouncement na kami ay magbababa pa lalo ng interest rates.
Yes. So there are two things, no. So number one, yung pagbaba talaga nung ekonomiya natin o yung pagbagal ng ekonomiya natin is really obvious from the numbers that were released, no. For example, the second quarter, no, mula April hanggang June of our public infrastructure spending, yung government spending on infrastructure, in the middle of our supposedly most dramatic midterm elections of our history, we spent -8. So we spent actually less. The government spent less money for infrastructure in second quarter. So this is a result of all this squabbling, tension, disagreements about budget allocations, etc., and the fear of the agencies themselves to actually procure this kasi ang daming naglalabasan. So, the government's number one role is to actually spend the money they've collected from us. So, otherwise, sa tayo na lang, yung 76% ng Filipino families na lang sana ang gumastos ng mga batas, ng mga buwis na yun kung hindi nila kinolekta. So, kinolekta din na sa atin yun eh. So therefore, dapat ibalik nila sa system yun. Kumbaga parang sa bathtub, kailangan ibalik mo sa bathtub yung tubig na na-drain kasi kinolekta yun as taxes. So, but if you did not inject that again, no? So, and in fact, you actually injected less versus last year. So, that actually cut our economic growth, no? So, but actually, buti na lang, bumaba yung presyo ng bigas at ng ibang bilihin towards the second quarter. So, ni-rescue tayo actually ng inflation in the second quarter. Pero kung magpapatuloy yung negative growth in the spending of infrastructure as also already sounded off by BSP. So, yung makita mo, yung inflation ngayon, di ba, pababa hanggang 0.9, pero ngayon tumataas na siya, 1.3, 1.7. So, papunta na siya dun sa 2, yung bandwidth na 2 to 4%. Yun po kasi ang inaalagaan ng BSP, 2 to 4%. Kapag lumampas na yun ng 4, medyo mahihirapan na mag-adjust ang mga consumers at ang mga pabrika, ang mga offices, mga corporations. So nakikita mo na yung trajectory na pataas na uli yung inflation. So, pagdating ng fourth quarter, the actual numbers of our GDP, which will be released I think middle of November. So, you don't want to be surprised later on na ang actual third quarter economy has actually slowed down as a result of the continuous less spending in infrastructure. So, kaya ngayon si BSP, okay, sige, medyo parang busy si national government, si fiscal policy, tutulungan na namin ito, no? Okay, sige, may exchange rate pero 1 day, 2 days pa lang naman ito. Let's take a look at this. We won't be bothered by it first. Ang tinitingnan ni BSP, paano niya matutulungan yung fiscal policy, yung national government in terms of additional support in economic
spending
habang mababa pa at hindi pa umaapak ng 3 to 4% ang inflation. Kasi by that time, may ipit na si BSP, sasabihin lang ni BSP, national government, pasensya ka na, hindi na muna ako makakatulong sa iyo sa economic growth push. Kasi baka lumampas na yung inflation natin, tatamaan na naman ulit yung consumers natin, which is 76% ng ekonomiya natin. So,
Okay, sir,
so
dahil
ngayon
nandun
pa
pa po
lang,
tayo, nandun pa tayo sa sinasabi niyo 2 to 4% na inaalagaan na inflation. Kumbaga may room pa, no,
oo, in
for
fact,
that,
now
no?
sa 1.7 pa lang eh. So,
Oo.
habang nandoon pa, sige, parang pwede pa nating tulungan ng national government. Economic growth, economic. Kasi dalawa lang naman yan, eh, economic growth o inflation. That's what you call the sacrifice ratio. So, kapag gusto mong tulungan yung economic growth, eh, isasakripisyo mo, papabayaan mo yung inflation na mag-accelerate. So, pagka kinontrol mo naman ang inflation, eh, kailangan be ready na isacrifice ang economic growth. Kailangan pabayaan mong bumagal kasi pababagalin mo nga yung demand ng tao by higher
But sir,
interest rate.
in practical terms, no, how does this impact our households? How should they brace themselves for the short term? And what should they do to protect themselves from the weakening peso?
So, yung weakening peso, it's actually an opportunity for our consumers, no? So, for as long as it still remains below 61, I think, no, yung ano ko lang diyan. Kasi around 17 million Filipinos are bound to benefit a little bit more from a slightly depreciated currency. So, marami sa mga Filipino families are recipients of OFW families. So, ngayon pa lang, napataas yung exchange rate mo, mag-ipon ka na ng pagko-convert mo so that you can have this thing called windfall, no? So, just because nag-i-increase yung exchange rate mo, may dagdag na savings ang ating mga Filipino families. So they can actually now buy the things that they can buy now in relation to this, additional savings or additional padala just because of the exchange rate, no. So yung mga kailangan lang bilhin na nila, yung mga kailangan bayaran tuition, bayaran nila. So habang hindi pa tayo nagkakaproblema, I think wag naman ano, pero yung problema lilitaw pa yan 1 to 2 months from now, if and when, no. So pero hopefully there are enough warnings already within the week, no, and then magkakaroon tayo ng matagal na pause this weekend, so that should, no, stabilize, give us time to reflect
Sometime,
on what to
yes.
do. So
Siguro ang tanong po ng
therefore,
mga tao
yeah.
kung ito na nga po yung time na magpapalit. Kasi kung sabi po ninyo na inaasahan po dito na kumbaga baka pwede pa mag-61, 62, hindi pa ho. Kasi 59 pa lang, 59.13 pa lang.
Pero well, don't speculate too much, pero I think the 60, 61, so pero kung masaya ka sa papalit na 59 hanggang 60, pwede pa yan pumalo ng 61. Again, dumudugo yung trade deficit natin. So, just by basic economics, kapag may
Correct.
trade deficit, magdi-depreciate. So, unless biglang mag-shift ng gears si BSP for some greater announcements later on next week na, ay, nako, we are ready to intervene. So, kukunin muna nila ng konti yung nasa reserves at i-release nila sa economy natin para bumalik sa 58 at 57 ang exchange. No? So, just to manage speculation, sentiments. No? Pero
Correct.
59, 60, pagpapalit na kayo at bilhin nyo na yung dapat yung bilhin para sa mga anak ninyo. And then,
I guess
later
the
na natin
remittances will push this back down, right? Back up in Philippine peso pagka nagkaroon na ng inflow pagdating ng December. So mga November,
kaya nga unti-unti habang
November
mataas pa, kunin mo na. Tapos siguro, from the point of view ng mga maliliit na negosyo na involved sa tourism, no? So this should also provide them a
boost,
short-term
yes.
opportunity na i-market nyo na yung ano nyo sa mga foreigners, sa mga nag-Airbnb dyan or whatever, no. So this should actually be more attractive for foreigners, especially in light of the upcoming holidays, no. So our tourism sector should be more attractive for foreign tourists at this level of exchange rate.
Okay. Thank you for helping us understand that from both sides. the impacts of the weakening peso to a dollar. It is at 59.13. From yesterday's trading closing at the record low since December of 2024. In the meantime, maraming salamat po for giving us sound advice, economic advice. Ronilo Balbieran, economist from the University of Asia and the Pacific.